All right, this note sheet is over the quadratic formula, and that formula is this right here. It's x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times ac, and the whole thing is divided by 2a. The quadratic formula is another method to use to solve a quadratic equation. Solve the equation below using the quadratic formula. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to make sure the equation is set equal to 0 and written in standard form. Okay, this is in standard form, it's equal to 0. Then you want to identify your a, b, and c. Okay, our a is the number in front of x squared, which is 1. Our b is the number in front of x, which is negative 5. And our c is the constant right here, which is negative 36. Then you're going to substitute these values into the formula and simplify. Okay, so the formula is negative b, our b is negative 5. Then it's plus or minus the square root. Our b is negative 5. Make sure you always put that number in parentheses right there. Minus 4 times our a is 1. Our c is negative 36. And the whole thing is over 2 times our a, which is 1. Okay, so that's always the first thing is you want to plug it in, and then you want to simplify after that. So we have a negative times a negative 5 makes that a positive 5. Underneath the radical, negative 5 squared is a positive 25. We have negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Negative 4 times negative 36 is a positive 144. And underneath in the denominator down here, you have 2 times 1 is 2. Okay, now let's simplify this part. 25 plus 144. So we have 5 plus or minus the square root. 25 plus 144 is 169. Okay, the square root of 169 is 13. So this turns into 5 plus or minus 13 over 2. Okay, now you're solving both parts here because there's two different answers. So you have 5 plus 13 divided by 2, and 5 plus 13 is 18 divided by 2 is 9. And then you have 5 minus 13 divided by 2. And 5 minus 13 is negative 8 divided by 2, which is negative 4. So our two solutions here are negative 4 and a positive 9. Okay. All right, so number 1. So first we've got to get 20 over to the other side. So this is x squared minus 8x minus 20 equals 0. Okay, so our a is 1, our b is negative 8, and our c is negative 20. So then we want to take those numbers and we're going to plug it into our formula. So you have negative times negative 8 plus or minus the square root, negative 8 squared minus 4 times our a is 1, our c is negative 20. It's over 2 times our a, which is 1. Okay, so negative times negative 8 is a positive 8 plus or minus the square root. Negative 8 squared is 64. Underneath the radical, we have negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Negative 4 times negative 20 is a positive 80. And the whole thing is over 2 times 1 is 2. Let's simplify further. So we have 8 plus or minus the square root. 64 plus 80 is 144. The square root of 144 is 12. So this is 8 plus or minus 12 over 2. Okay, well 8 plus 12 is 20. 20 divided by 2 is 10. 8 minus 12 is negative 4. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. And I know I have that in the wrong order there, but I had already started writing this, so that's fine. That's our solution set that you can actually say negative 2, 10, same thing. Okay, so number 2, I'm going to subtract 12 over. So we have 2x squared plus 7x. Subtract 12 over, so 3 minus 12 is negative 9. So our a is 2, our b is 7, and our c is negative 9. So we have a negative times b, which is 7, plus or minus the square root, 7 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 9. and it's over 2 times 2. So that's negative 7 plus or minus the square root. 7 squared is 49. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. Negative 8 times negative 9 is a positive 72. 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, simplify that. So we have negative 7 plus or minus. 49 plus 72 is 121. So we have the square root of 121. It's over 4. The square root of 121 is 11. So negative 7 plus 11, or I'm sorry, plus or minus 11 over 4. Okay, so our solution set here, we have negative 7 plus 11, which is 4, divided by 4 is 1. And negative 7 minus 11, which is negative 18, over 4. Doesn't divide evenly, so simplify down the fractions, negative 9 over 2. Okay. All right, number 3. Everything is in standard form here. We are actually missing the b term. So our a term is 3. Since there's no b term because there's not an x, you just say 0. And our c is negative 12. So we have negative 0 plus or minus the square root, 0 squared, minus 4 times 3 times negative 12. And it's over 2 times 3. Okay, so 0 plus or minus the square root, that's 0 squared is 0. Negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. Negative 12 times negative 12 is a positive 144. 2 times 3 is 6. Technically, we don't have to put that 0 in front of there, so you can just say plus or minus the square root, 0 plus 144 is 144. The square root of 144 is 12, so we have plus or minus 12 over 6. Okay, well, plus or minus 12 over 6, that means a positive 12 divided by 6 is a positive 2, and a negative 12 divided by 6 is a negative 2. Okay, so you can say x equals, squiggle brackets, negative 2, positive 2. Or if you want to write plus or minus 2, same thing. You can do that. Number 4, you want to subtract 6x over, so we have x squared. 15x minus 6x is 9x equals 0. Our a is 1. Our b is 9. This time we don't have a c, so it's 0. So we have negative 9 plus or minus the square root, 9 squared minus 4 times 1 times 0, and it's over 2 times 1. So it's negative 9 plus or minus the square root, 9 squared is 81. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Negative 4 times 0 is 0. 2 times 1 is 2. So then that turns into negative 9 plus or minus the square root of 81 is 9. It's over 2. Okay, so we have negative 9 plus 9 is 0. 0 divided by 2 is 0. We also have negative 9 minus 9 is negative 18. Negative 18 divided by 2 is negative 9. Okay, 15. It's already in standard form. Our a is negative 1. Our b is negative 10. And our c is negative 21. So we have negative times negative 10 plus or minus the square root, negative 10 squared minus 4 times negative 1 times negative 21. And that is over 2 times negative 1. Okay, so a negative times negative 10 becomes a positive 10 plus or minus. Negative 10 squared is 100. Negative 4 times negative 1 is a positive 4. Positive 4 times negative 21 is a negative 84. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Okay, so then we have 10 plus or minus the square root. 100 minus 84 is 16. The square root of 16 is 4, so we have 10 plus or minus 4 over negative 2. So our solution set, 10 plus 4 is 14, divided by negative 2 is negative 7. 10 minus 4 is 6. 6 divided by negative 2 is negative 3. Okay, Number 6, we need to subtract 12x over. So we have 4x squared. 9x minus 12x is negative 3x equals 0. So our A is 4. Our B is negative 3. There's not a C, so it's 0. So we have negative times negative 3 plus or minus the square root, negative 3 squared minus 4 times 0. And it's over 2 times 4. Negative times negative 3 is a positive 3, plus or minus the square root. Negative 3 squared is 9. Negative 4 times 4 is negative 16. Negative 16 times 0 is 0. 2 times 4 is 8. The square root of 9 is 3, so we have 3 plus or minus 3 over 8. Okay, so our solutions right here. 3 plus 3 is 6. 6 over 8 is going to simplify down to 3/4. 3 minus 3 is 0. 0 divided by 8 is 0. So it's 3/4 and 0 are our numbers. All right, let's flip over to the other side. Number 7, so we need to move everything over. So we have x squared. 7x minus x is 6x, and then we want to add the 10 over. So our A is 1, our B is 6, and our C is 10. So we have negative 6 plus or minus the square root, 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 10, and it's over 2 times 1. So that is negative 6 plus or minus the square root. 6 squared is 36. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Negative 4 times 10 is negative 40. It's over 2 times 1 is 2. So it simplifies to negative 6 plus or minus the square root. Well, 36 minus 40 is negative 4. It's over 2. Okay, now if you try to take the square root of negative 4, you're going to get an error message because you cannot take the square root of a negative. So that means that this is going to be a no solution. Number 8, you want to move it over. So we have 3x squared. We want to add that 3x squared over so it turns into a 6x squared. We have negative 5x, and then we have minus 4. So our A is 6, our B is negative 5, and our C is negative 4. Okay, so this is negative times negative 5 plus or minus the square root, negative 5 squared minus 4 times 6 times negative 4. And it's over 2 times 6. So a negative times negative 5 is a positive 5 plus or minus, okay? Negative 5 squared is 25. Negative 4 times 6 is negative 24. Negative 24 times a negative 4 is a positive 96. It's over 2 times 6 is 12. Okay, so simplifying that, so 5 plus or minus the square root. Well, 25 plus 96 is 121. It's over 12. The square root of 121 is 11. So we have 5 plus or minus 11 over 12. So our solution set, 5 plus 11 is 16. 16 over 12 is going to simplify down to 4/3. 5 minus 11 is negative 6. Negative 6 over 12 simplifies down to negative 1/2. Okay. All right, so now some irrational solutions. So meaning that we're going to get down to where our radical does not simplify. Okay, so we're still doing the same stuff. So we have our A is 1, our B is 4, and our C is 1. So we have negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times 1. And the whole thing is over 2 times 1. So it's negative 4 plus or minus the square root. 4 squared is 16. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. And it's over 2 times 1 is 2. Simplifying more. Negative 4 plus or minus the square root. 16 minus 4 is 12 over 2. Okay, so now we want to simplify the radical. So what's the largest perfect square that goes into 12 evenly is 4. So the square root of 4 is 2. So you have negative 4 plus or minus 2. We're left with the square root of 3 over 2. Okay, now we want to look at our triangle right here. If these two numbers divide by this, we can simplify that down. Okay, they both ignore the radical. Don't worry about that part. We're just looking at this little triangle right here. So negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. Plus or minus 2 divided by 2 is 1, and we don't have to write a 1 in front of the radical, so you just say the square root of 3 and just bring that down, and that's your answer. Okay, on number 10, so we have our A is negative 1, our B is negative 2, and our C is 7. So we have negative times negative 2 plus or minus the square root, negative 2 squared minus 4 times negative 1 times 7, and it's over 2 times negative 1. So negative times negative 2 is a positive 2, plus or minus the square root. Negative 2 squared is 4. Negative 4 times negative 1 is a positive 4. Positive 4 times 7 is a positive 28. And it's over 2 times negative 1, which is negative 2. So 2 plus or minus the square root. 4 plus 28 is 32. What's the largest perfect square that goes into 32 evenly is 16. The square root of 16 is 4, so we have 2 plus or minus 4, and it was 16 times 2 is 32. It's over negative 2. Okay, do these two numbers divide by negative 2? Yes. 2 divided by negative 2 is negative 1. 4 divided by negative 2 is negative 2. But you don't, because we already have a negative right here, you don't have to worry about that, so you just say 2 and then the square root of 2. Okay, number 11, so first we want to move the 20 over, so we have x squared plus x, and then 9 minus 20 is negative 11. So our A is 1, our B is 1, and our C is negative 11. So you have negative 1 plus or minus the square root, 1 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 11 over 2 times 1. Okay, so we have negative 1 plus or minus the square root. 1 squared is 1. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Negative 4 times negative 11 is a positive 44. 2 times 1 is 2. Let's simplify that. Negative 1 plus or minus the square root. 1 plus 44 is 45. What's the largest perfect square that goes into 45 evenly? Is 9. So we have negative 1 plus or minus. The square root of 9 is 3. And it was 9 times 5 is 45. Negative 1 and 3 do not divide by 2, so this is your final answer. Number 12, we want to add 2 over. So we have 4x squared minus 7x plus 2 equals 0. Our A is 4. Our B is negative 7. Our C is 2. So we have negative times negative 7 plus or minus the square root. Negative 7 squared minus 4 times 2, and it's over 2 times 4. A negative times negative 7 is a positive 7 plus or minus the square root. Negative 7 squared is 49. Negative 4 times 4 is negative 16. Negative 16 times 2 is negative 32. It's over 2 times 4 is 8. So we have 7 plus or minus 49, and negative 32 is 17, and 8. Square root of 17. Can't do it, and there's not a perfect square that goes into it, so that is your final answer right there. 13, we've got to move the 8x and the negative x squared over. So x squared plus x squared turns into 2x squared minus 8x plus 3 equals 0. So we have our A is 2, our B is negative 8, and our C is 3. So we have a negative times negative 8 plus or minus the square root, negative 8 squared minus 4 times 2 times 3. And it's over 2 times 2. Negative times negative 8 is a positive 8 plus or minus the square root. Negative 8 squared is 64. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. Negative 8 times 3 is negative 24. 2 times 2 is 4. So it's 8 plus or minus the square root. 64 minus 24 is 40. Okay, now can't take the square root of 40, but the largest perfect square that goes into 40 evenly is 4. And the square root of 4 is 2, so that's 8 plus or minus 2. And 4 times 10 is 40, so square root of 10 over 4. 8 and 2 and 4 all divide by 2, so we're going to simplify that down. So 8 divided by 2 is 4, plus or minus. 2 divided by 2 is 1, so we just have the square root of 10. And 4 divided by 2 is 2. And that is our final answer right there. Last one, we've got to subtract 12 over, so we have 3x squared minus 6x minus 12 equals 0. Our a is 3, our b is negative 6, our c is negative 12. So we have negative times negative 6 plus or minus the square root, negative 6 squared minus 4 times 3 times negative 12. And it's over 2 times 3. Negative times negative 6 is a positive 6, plus or minus the square root. Negative 6 squared is 36. Negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. Negative 12 times negative 12 is a positive 144. 2 times 3 is 6. Simplify that, so 6 plus or minus the square root. You have 36 plus 144 is 180. Okay. The square root of 180 can't do that, but the largest thing that goes into 180 evenly is 36, and that's 36 times 5. Okay, the square root of 36 is 6. So we have 6 plus or minus 6, square root of 5 over 6. These all divide out. They all divide by 6. So we're left with 1 plus or minus the square root of 5, and that is your final answer. Okay, so this is the quadratic formula.